Are you feeling low in sugars or feel hungry even though you just ate 1 hour ago? Do you feel like you get hangry without any good reason? This is the Dr. Lam Show, and we're here to talk about integrative medicine and empower you to take control of your health. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Dr. Lam Show podcast and the YouTube channel, as is a way to get the show more visible and show other people who really need this information. I'm Dr. Carrie Lam, family medicine physician, and I've completed fellowships in functional and metabolic medicine, and I'm passionate about nutrition and lifestyle medicine.
I'm Dr. Jeremy Lamb. I'm an internal medicine doctor. I'm also board certified in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And I've spent my medical career working in chronic disease treatment and prevention. And I believe firmly in the power of integrative medicine. And today we're going to be talking about balancing your sugars. To start with, let's talk about what blood sugars are so we're all on the same page. Now, one of the most common symptoms that we find in people complaining of adrenal fatigue is that the need to eat frequently. They just don't feel good and they feel irritable, 30 minutes to 2 hours after a meal when they're supposed to feel full. So, what's this all about, Dr. Carey?
Well, sometimes what they're feeling is this unbalanced blood sugar. Cortisol is very closely related to your metabolism. So when your cortisol levels drop and when you have adrenal fatigue, you're feeling low. Your sugars are also going to go up and down very erratically because you're feeling irritated after you eat or after you don't eat. So the short-term solution is just to eat more frequently, whether it's every 2 hours, whether it's every 1 hour, so you can manually try to stabilize this blood sugar as your body is not really able to do it at that point. However, there is a problem with that. When while it helps you to stabilize those feelings of feeling low sugars, the more you eat, the more you can gain weight in the future. So this could be undesirable in many situations for a lot of people as they don't want to gain weight. And so ultimately, even though you're stabilizing the short-term blood sugar to be in more line with your adrenals and your body's needs to be steady, you might eventually end up gaining more weight. So we have to really use this opportunity again to look at what the cause is and what your body is trying to tell you. What is the body trying to tell us when you have low blood sugars, Dr. Jeremy?
Well, it's trying to tell us that your body is trying to need more energy and it needs more sugar levels to sustain the stress that you're fighting off. So, when your body is craving these sugars and experiencing these lows, it's important to keep your blood sugar maintained to fight off the stress. As you can tell, balancing blood sugars isn't as simple as just eating more or less or going on with your life. Every circuit and organ in your body is connected. So a major change in one of them can have numerous and unexpected effects. If struggling with, blood sugar issues or any other changes in your body that you're not familiar with, then contact our team for a free initial phone call at 714-709-8000. They can give you specialized information and help with the changes that can occur with blood sugar imbalances. Now, we're going to go more deeply into some of the issues regarding the bioenergetic circuit and some health problems that come about it. Dr. Carey, you want to tell us about the bioenergetic circuit?
Yeah, so why the bioenergetic circuit is important is because the balancing of the blood sugars actually goes into this circuit, which is part of the bigger neuroendometabolic stress response. Um, the bioenergetic circuit, it has three organ systems: the thyroid, the pancreas, and the liver. And these three are all very important in metabolic functions. And it is among the least known for the way that the body responds to stress. And one of their primary functions is to produce energy needed by every cell in the body to carry out its functions. And when things go wrong with the bioenergetic circuit, it can lead to this downward spiral that affects every other system in the body. And when the blood sugars go down, we have to really just say it might not, if you were to poke yourself with the lab, like just a blood draw or a blood drop, you might actually find that your sugars are not actually low, like the absolute value in the lab. It's more sometimes people just have this feeling of um, hunger and needing to eat again, even though their actual blood sugars are low. So we want to make sure you have this picture in mind that when we're talking about low blood sugars, we're talking more about the response that you're having to the cortisol rather than an actual absolute level of the blood sugar dropping. Okay. And so, a lot of times, what are some of the causes of blood sugars feeling low? It can be um, it can be from eating a very high carb meal, and therefore you spike your insulin too quickly, and insulin brings all the glucose into your cells, and therefore you feel the drop in the sugar much faster. And the drop in the sugar might not necessarily make the sugar go low, but it could just be a relative drop. So that's why you actually feel the low blood sugar. And so, something that you can do to mitigate that is not having high carb meals, or whenever you're eating carbs, is to eat um, protein or good fat with it, and eating very often. But that was just talking about blood sugars, and let's get back to like the bioenergetic circuit and how we can improve the whole circuit in order to help those reactive hypoglycemic symptoms that you might be having. So, um, Dr. Jeremy, what is this downward spiral of bioenergetic circuit look like?
Well, when stress is responsible for the derangement, right, or your bioenergetic dysfunction, then the resulting symptoms only worsen until the underlying problem or stress is resolved. You can have paradoxical reactions, repeated adrenal crashes, severe constipation, sensitivity to supplements and medications, and hypersensitivity to even some EMF. And so, regardless of which pathways are involved, the derangement of your metabolic functioning and the bioenergetic circuit is a huge part of the downward spiral that comes with adrenal fatigue. And so, unfortunately, by the time you have these metabolic symptoms emerge, then your body is compromised and it can't handle stress well. So then you do get symptoms such as reactive hypoglycemia, gastric shutdown, and low blood pressure that could be going on. And all these indicate your body is going into a catabolic state in order to conserve the remaining energy that you need to fight off the stress.
And how does hypoglycemia get implicated in the bioenergetic circuit? So we talked about before, um, adrenal fatigue sufferers commonly have hypoglycemia due to decreased cortisol and increased insulin. And normally with increasing stress, you usually would have more cortisol and increased glucose to be released into the body. However, when you are under stress, cortisol somehow decreases and glucose release slows down. And then when you increase more insulin to counter the initial higher levels of glucose, then that stress can lead to hypoglycemia because a lot of the glucose goes into your cells and not into the blood to be used. So much of this time, the hypoglycemia can be subclinical, leading to even conventionally trained medical professionals missing this connection between stress and hypoglycemia. And so it can be very disruptive because your body cannot obtain sufficient energy from food being turned or converted into sugar. And so then your body starts to burn fat and protein for energy, which is a very inefficient way of providing energy. And cortisol levels must be high enough for this type of energy to be supplied. And so when you have adrenal fatigue and your cortisol levels decrease with stress, then your body will lack the energy required to function well. And low blood sugars can definitely affect your brain more when it senses these low levels. It stimulates different organs to release hormones into the bloodstream in order to make your liver release more glucose. And if that doesn't work, then the results may be seizures, confusion, loss of consciousness, brain fog. Dr. Jeremy, tell us how the pancreas is implicated in this bioenergetic circuit.
Well, the pancreas is an organ of digestion, and so its primary purpose is to help control insulin levels. And so enzymes also from the pancreas flow into the intestines and help with breaking down foods. So with significant stress, inflammation results and increases. Now, chronic inflammation can negatively affect the cells in the pancreas. And so then that makes it much more difficult for the pancreas to regulate blood sugar levels and can result in reactive hypoglycemia as well. So if you have problems with your bioenergetic circuits, then it's important to know so then you can be aware of how it's affecting other symptoms in your body. And so, like we mentioned before, symptoms of dysfunctional bioenergetic circuits include catabolic state. It also has dizziness, which is a common complaint brought to medical professionals. Low blood sugar can also be often a cause of dizziness. So that can be related. Thyroid problems, low blood pressure can also be related to dizziness. You can have cholesterol imbalance and dyslipidemia as another symptom. And so this is abnormal lipid metabolism because abnormal level of fats accumulate in the blood. And so you can have significant health problems that come from this, including affecting the cardiovascular system. What other symptoms can they see in bioenergetic dysfunction, Dr. Carey?
You can also see insulin resistance, which sometimes leads to type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular conditions. With the inability of the glucose to actually get into the cells, you have higher levels of glucose in the blood, and therefore that makes more dysfunctional bioenergetic circuit. Other things that might see is mitochondrial disorders, which lead to insufficient energy production. And the mitochondria are super important energy factories in the cell that produce ATP needed by all the energy cells in your body. And the mitochondria are very sensitive, especially to thyroid hormones, which also leads to a big connection with adrenal hormones. And so you definitely want to make sure the thyroid is working well for the bioenergetic circuit to not become dysfunctional. And sugar cravings from the hypoglycemia could also be one of another symptom. Tinnitus is something also that we do see ringing in your ears. That's what tinnitus is, that the blood sugar levels might be affecting, and weight issues, whether it's in the beginning weight gain and inability to weight gain. Lose weight, and then if you are in catabolic state, like Dr. Jeremy talked about, it would be a really quick muscle loss and losing of weight that was uncontrolled. And if you're there, you definitely need to find help. Okay. And so, an illustration of the model of the organs that makes up the bioenergetic circuit is the liver, the pancreas, the thyroid. They all play major roles in the metabolic function and how energy is distributed throughout the body. And if it's metabolically dysfunctional, you could have the symptoms of hypoglycemia, the low blood sugar. And so, healing this bioenergetic circuit is possible, but you need to have a comprehensive plan that takes into account how these organs work together with the whole neuroendometabolic stress response. We hope this helps you understand what may be going on in your body, as blood sugar imbalances can often be ignored by conventional medicine, leading to long term poor health. So remember that it's your body and you're the best judge of whether you're healthy or not. If you think something's wrong, raise the flag. Don't stop searching until you get help and guidance you need. Thank you for being here with us today on the Dr. Lamb Show. We hope you find this information helpful. And so if you did, please subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you more content. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for the notifications. If you know anyone else who might find this show helpful, just share it with them. Remember that we're here to empower you to take control of your health.